Another episode of Vikings Happy Hour this week. Kevin O'Connell is official. Deshaun Watson's team, and we're fresh off the Super Bowl, so I want to kind of talk about that as well. So grab your drink and join us this week for a fun show.
Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour, where we mix our favorite beverage and talk of your Minnesota Vikings.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. I am your host, Matt Anderson. You can find me over on Twitter at @MattAnderson_8. Co-host Ryan is not here yet. He's on his way, so when he finally arrives, we'll get him introduced and see what he's drinking tonight. But Dave is filling the void. We've had a carousel of guests kind of swapping around. It was supposed to be Will this week. He had a scheduling conflict. It was supposed to be Matthew Collar filling in for Will. Another scheduling conflict, and
Jury
we
duty
just
for Matthew.
yeah. You just got to roll with the punches, and we will for sure get Matthew Collar back on. But Dave is gracious enough to come out from behind the curtain on this Wednesday evening. I know he's fine with it because he gets to drink on air. So Dave, what do you have
Drink
tonight?
on
By the way,
air every night. I'm drinking the old Barton bourbon with some Diet Dr. Pepper.
Okay,
My
very
my
nice.
standby. Want to say hey to everybody here before we get into talking about Kevin O'Connell and Deshaun Watson. I just want to thank everybody for coming and joining and watching us tonight. Ryan's
Absolutely.
slowly getting back to his computer. Hopefully he will be with us shortly.
And we got plenty of time, right? I think we're kind of at a standstill for the Vikings offseason, right? We've been waiting for this Kevin O'Connell news to become official. I know that there was some panic yesterday out on Twitter amongst some fans thinking that are the Vikings going to lose out on Kevin O'Connell? And so I'm glad to see that people they're being eased now. Kevin O'Connell's official. People came out and kind of squashed that chaos, so that's good. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Apologies, gentlemen. Yeah, I
No worries.
was. Brandon and I were playing a little Fortnite, having some father-son time, and I totally lost track of time. So I'm so sorry.
You are A-okay. We can always kind of fill the void until you get here. What are you drinking tonight? I heard you kind of pop something there.
Yeah, I'm trying to open up the bottle here. It's a brand new bottle of the Basil Hayden Toast. It's kind of one of my favorite bourbons. It's a little smokier than most bourbons, and I think they age it in some sort of maybe like I forget some sort of smoked barrel, so it gives it a little
Okay.
smokier taste than a regular Basil Hayden. And very, very good. Actually, Crockett, who you met, and Antonio,
Yeah.
when they came down for the Seahawks game, uh, Antonio actually brought me one. It was brand new at the time, and it was so good. We finished it that weekend, and I finally found another bottle at Total Wine just a couple weeks ago, and finally opened her up. So
Yeah, well,
It
there you
sounds
go.
delicious.
I'm glad you're popping out on this show.
I saved my best stuff for this show.
That's awesome.
I was telling Dave right before you hopped on, we're kind of at a standstill right now for Vikings offseason. We've kind of anticipated the Kevin O'Connell news coming in Vikings Twitter kind of freaked out a little bit yesterday, I heard. And so that's official as of this afternoon. Press conference tomorrow, 4 o'clock Central Time. You can find it on Twitter for the Vikings website. You can also find it on Fox 9. I think they're going to be streaming it as well. So, I mean, until he kind of gets in the building, Yeah, we don't have a whole lot, but we were gifted something early this morning from ESPN, and I do want to get your takes on it. And the elephant in the room is obviously, Desha- it, first off, it's Deshaun Watson. He allegedly is isn't interested or intrigued at the thought of coming to Minnesota. He's evaluating his options. Um, so we can talk about this briefly, and I just kind of want to get your opinion on it. But the elephant in the room, right, is the sexual assault allegations that is currently ongoing. That is not resolved. In fact, I think he might even be settling on some of them. I don't know the whole details on the situation. So in reality, for me, immediate no, just on that principle. But for the sake of the show, we'll play Madden for a second. Everybody's perfect off the field. Um, what would you think about Deshaun Watson being on the Minnesota Vikings? And there's an asterisk
Yeah,
next to it, so everybody
right,
knows
right.
that you're
Yeah,
you're not condoning off the field behavior.
yeah. So prior to all of the allegations coming out, obviously there was steam on Vikings Twitter about should we trade for him? Again, this was prior to all the allegations popping up. Should we trade for him? Should we? And this would have been for this season, for this last season. And I was all on board. I think that he is a very talented young quarterback. Obviously, people are going to point to his win loss record or his playoff record, and his sacks that he takes and things like that. But just the dynamic player that he is. I mean, he did lead his team to a couple different playoff berths. Even took a huge lead the year that the Chiefs ended up winning the Super Bowl. I mean, the Chiefs had to come back from like a 20-point deficit against Deshaun Watson's Texans to be able to win. I think that was the to go to the AFC Championship. So on the field, great player. Of course, yes. Does he take unnecessary sacks because he's looking for the home run ball? Yes. Does he? Is he mistake free? Absolutely not. But with his ability to run the ball, his ability to process the field, he doesn't have a cannon for an arm, but he's got enough to make it in the NFL. I think that was definitely going to be a really really solid opportunity to bring in. Now with all of these allegations, it's obviously a hard no. I mean, you can't take a chance, even if he does get acquitted of all charges, right, or of all of this. It's a black eye on him as in general. And granted, I'm sure there will be a team that gives him an opportunity, and that's their right. We've already gone through enough as a fan base, as an organization, through some very controversial things that we've supported the player and not supported the player. Jeff Gladney is the most recent example, but we had the Adrian Peterson situation. We've had the Love Boat scandal, and a multitude of other different things I'm sure that I'm forgetting about right now. But we're starting fresh. We have Kwesi in house to build a culture that hopefully will prevent players from doing this type of stuff, right? Being the shining example, hopefully, of the league in terms of at least culture. I mean, obviously, we want it to be on
Yeah.
the field as well, but from a culture perspective, we want to lead the way in that as well. I think that's important for the Wilfs. I think that's important for Kwesi. So I just can't see the move being made, even if he is interested.
Well, you talk about like a black eye, right? Like if Deshaun Watson, we don't need like the parade that not the parades, the charades, whatever, of Deshaun Watson coming to town. But you bring up another good point. It's right now the Vikings are trying to change the culture, right, of the Zimmer Spielman era, and um, I think that making a move like this uh, in the midst of everything still, right? Like nothing has been cleared. I just saw a comment from Raymond. What if he's innocent and did not do those things, due process? Sure. But at the current moment today, that's not how it is. Um, you know, these are legit allegations against him. And if you're coming in to change the culture with Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, this is just not the move you make. It's just not. You're not. There's a lot of different things that they can do to make as a splash play, right? They can trade Kirk Cousins. They can draft a rookie quarterback, trade up for a rookie. Like there's things they can do. This is probably not the route that they want to risk, the start of their tenure here in Minnesota on. Um, so,
Right. And
Dave,
and and, and
any?
have there been players, and sorry, Dave, I'll give you your time here. Have there been players who have survived these type of allegations? I
Mhm.
mean, one just retired this year and has gotten applause upon applause throughout his career for how good of a quarterback he is. That's Ben Roethlisberger, right?
Yep.
So there, you can survive this, and sure, do we want to take that risk? Sure, and that's fine. If that's what the Wolves end up doing, that's fine. They will lose fans. I mean, it's inevitable. We're in a different time than what was all of Roethlisberger's allegations in '06, '07, something like that. It's a
Yeah.
very different time now. So I have a harder time believing that Watson can really recover from this unless all the girls basically come out and say we are lying. This is a money grab, which obviously they're not going to do. So go ahead, Dave. I know you had some comments on this that were going to be interesting.
First off, Deshaun Watson is a top 5 quarterback in the league when he's playing. Those are rare, right? He is a winning quarterback. There is appeal in that, and the fact that if he comes and he can wins with Minnesota, a lot of that stuff goes away in the minds of fans because fans want a winning team. We haven't won in so long. We want winners. However, there is the baggage. The baggage of the 20 plus lawsuits, the complaints. They are right now in civil proceedings. Deshaun Watson hasn't even been interviewed, I think it's by the NFL, until he wasn't allowed to until the Super Bowl was over. So that hasn't even happened. All this stuff has to play out. By the time it plays out, the Vikings will have made a decision already. They can't wait. No teams can wait. It's the other one that was mentioned in the story is the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, they were sort of running into the same situation. If Brady retires,
Yeah.
they've got to make a decision to move on. But what happens if Brady gets like Brett Favre and gets into August and goes, I want to play, right? And there's no room to take
Yeah.
him
You're not going
back,
to say no.
right? It's the Vikings have to make a decision early now, but prior to the draft, about Kirk Cousins. Are they going to play with Kirk Cousins? Are they not? Are they going to go for a trade? What are they going to do? Right? Now, if they want to say, and a lot of this, I'm sure Jeremy Fowler got from Deshaun's agent, right? There's feelers out there, and people are open up for business, as was said earlier today. There's, hey, my guy wants to play. We think he's going to play. Well, you've got to do all the civil stuff. And then once the civil stuff is done, the NFL is going to come down. And even without a conviction, they can say, we're suspending you, right? And if they suspend him for 4 games, so be it. Nick, I'm not discounting wanting somebody with all that baggage. I'm just saying, talent-wise, he is one of the best quarterbacks in this league. That may be appealing. Now, the other thing that comes into play is his cost. Deshaun Watson's on his second contract. He's on his extension, right? We know Kirk Cousins is going to cost us $45 million this year unless we trade or extend him. And if we extend him, some of that gets pushed down, but eventually you're paying for it. That's the whole idea of the sit rep earlier in the week. You're paying for it. It's just now, are you paying for it now or are you paying for it later? But you're paying for it. And then if you trade him, we're paying the 10 mil that we pushed down to now on the road, and he's going to cost somebody else $35 million. Deshaun Watson, right now, going into 2022, is guaranteed by the Texans $35 million in salary. Whether he plays it down or not, they owe him $35 million. His cap number for this season will be 42-4, right? So that's not a whole lot less than Kirk Cousins. It still puts the Vikings in a bind if they decide to go that route. And we know we don't, all of us have been proponents. No, let's free up some cash so we can start building the team up again into a winner. Now, his salary goes down over the next 2 years to 37-4 and 32, which is reasonable. It's and especially for the quality of quarterback you're getting, if he didn't have that baggage. And that whole baggage thing is what makes, as much as I'd love to see him play in purple, and I'm the one that did the artwork there. I put him in number 1 because number 4 is taken up by Dalvin Cook this season. As much as I'd like to see that, I don't want the baggage with it because it's going to be a circus. And it does not do anything in the way of financial freeing up of money so that we can build the team into a perennial contender. You can't do that. We're taking that much chunk of the cap just for one player. And especially knowing that he will be suspended for probably at least 4 games if you did. So I'm a no on it. I find it interesting. I think it's all driven from his camp trying to generate interest around the league, and Jeremy Fowler for ESPN to generate clicks, and us putting it, as the theme of tonight to generate clicks because we want you guys to watch.
Right.
But
and I agree with you, Dave.
Happening.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, obviously, a top 5 quarterback. Anytime you have a chance to get someone like that, you gotta jump at it. Unless there's extenuating circumstance. Not this kind of baggage. Not this kind of baggage. I mean, and even this year, I guess he did pop up with some baggage, right? Like this whole domestic assault stuff. But it's a little easier to stomach that when it's in your own team already. It's one individual saying something versus 20 or whatever it is that number got up to. So, but on a more interesting or positive note, if we're going to keep talking quarterbacks here, Matt, I know we have an agenda that we should probably stick to, but obviously there was some steam over the last.
We don't have much.
Yeah. I do want to answer. I do want to answer Doug's question right here. Doug asked, didn't he say he had no interest in the Vikings a while back? Yes, that's exactly what he said, supposedly, or was reported, Doug. But what has changed between now and then?
Justin Jefferson.
New head coach, new whole, front office. Things have changed, and like I said, I think a lot of it is his agent trying to drive, a market. So that's why the interest is now there.
Ryan, I didn't have it in the show notes, but I definitely see where you were going to go with it. So I'll play along with it, right? The Kyler Murray Arizona Cardinals falling out potentially. They both have unfollowed each other on Instagram. I know Kyler removed a lot of Arizona Cardinals stuff. It's the off season; it's full of speculation. But you, in particular, have to be a pretty happy Viking fan, right? Like, the head coach you didn't like, he's gone. Now you got a new one. And then the 2 quarterbacks potentially that could be coming to the team are Oklahoma alum in Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray.
Heisman-winning Oklahoma quarterbacks. Oklahoma quarterbacks.
Okay. So, you know what? I'll leave you with this prompt. There's a lot of characteristic issues we're hearing about Kyler Murray and even Baker Mayfield to a certain extent.
Both.
Are you gonna stand for them right now and try and make a pitch to Vikings Nation that we should go for them, or I'll just let you have it? You do you. Tell me about your OU quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, I try to focus more on the on-field production and what they can bring to the team from a leadership standpoint. And again, that's currently being assaulted right now from a Kyler Murray perspective, and even from a Mayfield perspective. I mean, with the whole OBJ drama that happened, um, I'd much rather have Kyler Murray than Baker. I mean, obviously, you get a year of cost-controlled quarterback, longer, one more year of cost-controlled quarterback. You get a more dynamic quarterback. Although, again, we all saw what happened in the playoff game against the Rams. It was quite awful. Was that all Kyler? I'm not going to say it is. I think Cliff Kingsbury really struggled in the second part of pretty much every year he's ever been a head coach. If you date back all the way to his college days, he's been awful in the second half of seasons every single year. So it's nothing new. I would be very happy for Kyler if he was able to get out of there, or if they would have gotten a new head coach. So when it comes pertaining to the Vikings, right, it's exactly what I was talking about with Baker a couple weeks ago, where Baker would be a great addition on our team, in my opinion, if we could get draft capital back. It's not a situation. I'm not sitting here, Vikings fans. I'm not sitting here saying Baker Mayfield's better than Kirk Cousins. I don't think he is currently. I don't think he's as bad as he was this year. He played hurt all year, and that's going to happen. When you're playing hurt, you're playing with a really bad other shoulder, you're not going to play well, right? You're playing scared, you're playing timid, and if your line's not playing as great as it typically has been for him the year prior, again, it's not working out that great. But the situation for us would be great if we can offload Kirk's contract, get maybe some draft capital back, have a bridge quarterback, have and a player who's cheap, right? 18 million for a quarterback's relatively cheap. And then you could
For a
see what he
first-round
has, because
draft
he had,
choice, yes.
yeah, he had shown promise. I mean, you look at 2020, the back half of 2020 season. You look at that playoff game against the Steelers and against the Chiefs last year, and then you go and throw in the first two games this year before the injury. He was playing really, really, really well. So could he get that back? I don't know. Maybe his confidence is shot. I have no idea. Where you look at Kyler Murray, you have a younger, way more dynamic player who has a rocket of an arm, who can scramble, who can create out of nothing. I mean, you've seen this guy make plays that your jaws drop to the ground. At very worst, you have a lot of fun at the quarterback play. At very worst, you have a
Yeah.
younger player. You have, and it would make a lot of sense if the opportunity was there. I don't know what that would cost. I think the cost, that situation goes opposite, right? So the Baker situation, we likely get draft capital back. In the Kyler situation, we're giving up Kirk, if they would take him, plus draft capital to take on a Kyler Murray. So are we?
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to pay him in a year or two. And again, we're back in the situation.
That's where you use him as a
cap?
bridge quarterback to 2023.
Well, for Baker, yes, but for Kyler, you're trading for Kyler to be your future star, right? So,
I have it.
Yeah.
3-team trade. Kirk to San Fran. Trey Lance to Arizona. Vikings give up a first as well, and they can send that to Arizona. And then we get Kyler Murray. Everybody wins, right? Shanahan gets his guy.
Yeah, I heard one the other day where Kirk goes to Houston. Watson goes to Arizona, and Murray comes to us. But it's people making up trade scenarios.
Well, speaking of making up trade scenarios, knockout time, which I don't think I've seen knockout time in the chat before. So welcome to the show. Asking if we would take Russell Wilson for a 3rd and 4th pick, if available. I am assuming 3rd and 4th rounder, in which case I'd be all over it. And Mr. Kirk Cousins, this isn't the NBA, Matt. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I think for a 3rd and a 4th round pick, you'd have to be interested in Kirk Cousins, or for Russell Wilson. Sorry, I guess the whiskey's hitting me a little bit harder this evening.
Well, I
But
like
what
the
are your
way
guys'
I like what Dan's thinking about. Trade Kirk Cousins to San Francisco, and we'll take Trey Lance and some
They
I'm all
prospects.
wouldn't
for
do
that
that
too.
though.
I know they won't. I like the thought.
But that's what makes the offseason fun though, right? Because here we are, right? It's kind of we're hearing a lot of rumors. We just heard the other week still that the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell still really want to work with Kirk Cousins, right? Like those rumors are still going. And so I want
And
to
those
pose a
also could
And,
question.
be
and
raising his
yeah,
value.
and yeah, I say who's saying that, and why are they saying that? Like it could be
Right.
accurate, 100% accurate. It could be his agent trying to make us look like a-holes if we decide to trade him, or it could be our side pumping up Kirk's trade value because we don't want to get rid of him.
Yeah. But so here's what I want to ask you guys quick. So Dave already talked about it with Kirk Cousins' contract. It's not a matter of if, it's when you're going to pay that, right? If he has an extension, you're going to pay it down the road at some point, and it's this little cat and mouse game of extension, push the cap way out. Once we get to there, we'll deal with it, so on and so forth. It's perfect for Cousins, right? Because he just gets continue to make a boatload of money. But what I want to ask you is, in what we know about Kevin O'Connell and what we've kind of seen in his interviews, specifically one back from when he was with Washington, he says his ideal offense is, and Dave will love this, his ideal offense is to have a really strong, versatile offensive line, um, one that can kind of switch schemes, depending on the defensive front that they're facing. But the one thing that stood out to me, and this is why I sort of am buying the Kirk Cousins Kevin O'Connell steam, is Kevin O'Connell's offenses. He has stated that all he wants is, or he wants his offenses to be um, very quarterback friendly, which a lot of the McVay coaching tree offenses are. But in O'Connell's ideal offense, all the quarterback needs to do is distribute. Now, you can take that one of two ways. You can take that as, wow, Kirk would really succeed in that. Like, all you got to do is distribute. That sounds like a successful offense for Kirk Cousins to be in. Or you look at the other route. Well, if it's a quarterback-friendly offense, why not just pay somebody less to do the distributing, whether that's a rookie
Well,
quarterback. I saw Gardner Minshew in the comments here, and so on and so forth. So
yeah, because everybody
I'll
loves
let you
Minshew.
guys I'll let you guys go with that. What I just said there, but
Now,
I'm buying the Kirk Cousins staying in 2022 steam.
but in O'Connell's offense, from what I gather, besides the whole idea of being able to show the same basic play and run a myriad of different options off of it, there's very much a large decision-making process that goes to the quarterback. And so he's got to be prepared for that. Is Kirk Cousins good
Hit
at
me
that?
up, Steve. I'll buy it.
That's what I'm not buying. Now, we got on here, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. We're not disputing that. Nobody here disputes that Kirk Cousins is not a good quarterback. He is a good quarterback. But does he have it what it takes to go all the way? And is he worth the percentage of cap that the Vikings are paying him? That, because it is so large, it detracts from where the Vikings can build up on the rest of the team, and it makes it difficult, and he has to cover for that, and he has not demonstrated the ability to do such. That's why I think the Vikings are trying to raise his trade value and start fresh. It's a lot easier to build up a team, a competitive team, when you've got a quarterback on a first contract than it is to have a middling quarterback, and he ranked Kirk Cousins is, 10 to 15, 16, 17 range, middle of the pack, that makes so much money. A rookie contract, even a first rounder, Baker Mayfield in his, what it would be, his fourth year, is only going to make $18 million. A normal rookie contract starts out in the, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then slowly builds up. You have a lot
But-
more ability to
I
build a
do
team that way. 'Cause everybody loves
I
Minshew.
do Are you intrigued at all though? Like at yeah, and it's like the cliche like boyfriend girlfriend thing, like, oh, I can fix them kind of thing. But do you are you intrigued at all at the thought of like what Kevin O'Connell could do with Kirk Cousins, or just having an offensive minded head coach at all? Like there's not any scenario where you're like, well, I could be convinced that maybe I would see what it does for a year. You know what I mean? Like there's
I
and I'm going to ask
watched
Ryan
I
specifically.
watched him play in Washington because that's where I lived in Virginia and watched the Redskins were the local team, and I watched him play prior to him coming to Minnesota.
The
He
nose
had Jay Gruden, he
flying in the
had
comment section.
Sean McVay, and he had Kevin O'Connell,
Yeah,
and he was no better. He gravitates to 500, and he had some
Dave,
good teams back then.
I'm just playing host. I got to ask the
I'll shut up.
you know, Ryan, there's no intrigue at all as to what Kirk Cousins could do, because playing devil's advocate here, uh, in every season that Kirk has been here, the the uh, the flaws that we have pointed out, the fumbling, there's been extending of plays. He's improved on those things. Now he still does check it down occasionally, um, a lot actually. But devil's advocate, any intrigue at all? 1 to 100. You're muted too, by
And
the
he's
way.
muted.
Yeah. I really appreciate the devil's advocate take here. I like to play devil's advocate a lot. I know you don't really believe what you're saying, which makes it funnier. Um, so here's the thing: is Kirk Cousins is what 34, 33, 34, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it'd
Um,
be 34 for the next season. He's 33 right now.
yeah. Okay. Sure. He is who he is, man. We've seen him with offensive
You don't
minded
believe
head
in
coaches.
change?
I do, but like the change in your career in the NFL quarterback's career happens from like rookie contract through like age 29, 30, right?
There
Oh,
you
that's
go,
a
Joseph.
delicious one.
You got
Oh, I
half to
should crack.
go.
I love it. But that's when the change happens. Like that's when you improve. Now, when you're in your 30s, you rarely season to you're basically just like staying the course at this point. Like has Aaron Rodgers improved much over the last 8 years? I mean, he's won a couple MVPs, but he hasn't really improved. He's stayed really good, right? You look at like Russell Wilson, he's hitting this age now as well, right? They're the same age or so. He's actually declining right now in quality of play right now. Like it's not going to get better from here on out. It'll either stay the same or it's going to get worse. Now, sure, having an offensive minded head coach, having a more quarterback friendly scheme, that might allow him to make less mistakes or put himself in a better position to make plays. But like Dan Henneman and I think a bunch of people in the chat have said, he is a $45 million quarterback when we can bring in Mac Jones to do the exact same thing. And trust me, I'm not a Mac Jones guy. I did not like him in the draft, but you literally saw what a good quarterback friendly system can do to a quarterback, right? He had a pretty
Oh yeah,
solid rookie year and he was able to distribute, he was able to manage that offense and get them to a playoff, right? I mean, that defense
yeah.
got them to the playoff, but like even Stafford to a certain extent, he was he got put into this system, but Stafford's a better quarterback than Kirk. Only if because he's willing to take the risks. I mean, I'm sure all of us have watched that one play in the Super Bowl where he no look throws it over the middle to Cooper Kupp on that last drive. Kirk Cousins checks that down to whoever ran that button hook. That's what he does. He's not going to try to make that throw, right? That's just
I
who
mean,
they are at this point.
devil's advocate here. Everybody was, clamoring over Joey B, and he was a little bit of a check down guy there at the end in the Super
He's
Bowl.
also he's also playing us with a sprained MCL. So, but yeah, I mean, he didn't play
All right.
great. I wouldn't say that Burrow was like phenomenal in the Super Bowl, but he was really good getting them there. Kirk has not gotten
I've
us there.
I've seen some comments in the chat about Matt Stafford, which this is something I definitely wanted to get to. We're probably getting into it a little bit earlier. We're going to continue to talk about Kirk as long as he's a quarterback on this team. Um, who knows how long that is? It could be 5 years. It could be 5 weeks. It could be 5 hours. Who knows? But uh, I want to talk to you guys about Matt Stafford because, as everyone knows, the LA Rams won the Super Bowl on Sunday. Uh, I think I'm a little jaded at the end there because I feel like the refs finally felt like they needed to throw a bunch of flags, and it did kind of help the Rams, but the Bengals still had an opportunity.
Some
So
really weak calls, some really weak calls there at the end. I was very
yeah,
they held the flags in their pocket all game, let it be a relatively physical game all game, and then all of a sudden you start throwing those relatively weak things. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say they weren't absolutely not holding calls or whatever, but
hmm
they let those plays happen all game until what it was 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden they had to throw it. Like I was a little
yeah.
annoyed.
So obviously, being Viking fans, we've seen Matthew Stafford 2 times a year for the last 10 years. Like, we know who he is. We know what kind of quarterback he is. We've seen him do these types of like no look throws against us, right? He just was on a bad team. But he won the Super Bowl, and now we kind of see things coming out that say, is he a Hall of Fame worthy quarterback? And that's the discussion that I want to get into tonight is I feel like in Richard Sherman, I haven't listened to his podcast. I don't know if he has covered it yet. I know he was going to, but I feel like we're getting very lenient on who we think should be in the Hall of Fame. Um, we saw it a couple years ago with Julian Edelman, right? It's a lot of recency bias. Um, Players have a good game in the Super Bowl, they win, they should be a Hall of Famer, right? That's just how it should be. We're seeing it with Stafford. So I wanted to get your guys' take on how you think the Hall of Fame is handling this right now. If you think the committee's doing a good job, obviously we don't know about current players because they haven't made it, but we're seeing guys like Jared Allen not get in right away, and some other good ones as well. So I want to just kind of get your take on the Hall of Fame, the eligibility for it. Are fans wrong in saying that Stafford should be a Hall of Fame quarterback? Um, and anything else you have related to that topic? Dave, why
Yeah,
don't you
I
go
mean,
first? Because you, sorry, Ryan. Dave's seen football a lot longer than us, so
The Hall of Fame was intended for the elite of the elite, right? The best players in football. And there are some out there that there's no question that Aaron Donald, if he chooses to retire 5 years from now, is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He was that good playing the game. Randy Moss. Randy Moss changed the game, how the modern game was played, right? He is that good. He steps into that. There are quarterbacks. Over the last 10 years, we could always list the best quarterbacks in the league, and they were Brady, Manning when he was in. Uh, you had Drew Brees, right? And those were generally the top three that no matter what, those guys are going in. Then you get into the second tier guys, right? The Russell Wilson, maybe. Roethlisberger, maybe. Roethlisberger most likely will because he has 2 Super Bowls. Super Bowls matter when it comes to quarterback play. When you get down to Stafford, and then there's a whole bunch of other good ones that were around, but even with one win, do you get in? And the question is, are you elite of the elite? Yeah, you put up some volume numbers, but you weren't constantly leading the league. You weren't the ones everybody was talking about. Oh shit, we got to play Manning this weekend, you know, type stuff. You weren't in that class. You were good, but you weren't in that class. And to me, the Hall of Fame should be that class, that best of the best. That's why it's sort of
Yep.
this year's selection pissed me off because I thought Jared Allen was one of the best when it came to defensive ends, and
But
he didn't make
but
it
I think
because
when
they
you
were
look at
going with a bunch of people that had been missed over for a few years.
But that's the tough thing about the Hall of Fame, and so I guess I answered my own question, but I do feel like the Hall of Fame committee is doing a good job, right? Like they're not buying into recency bias. They are
No,
sticking to their guns. They're picking the
generally.
elite of the elite. Um,
Well, picking the
I'm
elite of the
not even going to
elite's
get.
questionable, but they're
I'm.
getting most of them.
I'm not even going to get into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame uh, conversation. But Ryan, what do you think? Because I mean, Jared Allen's
Yeah.
the most recent Viking player we can probably think of outside of Randy Moss. But Randy Moss is no question a first ballot. But just your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone can be a first ballot, right? Like there's too many good players in this league that everyone can't be a first ballot, both new like now and in the past. And sure, did Jared Allen is Jared Allen better than some of those guys on that made it this year? Absolutely. Um, I'm not. I don't think that the Hall of Fame. I don't think the Hall of Fame ignored some of Jared Allen's problems that he had maybe off the field prior to becoming a Viking, and maybe that could be why he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, or
And
in it
that's
already.
possible. And we do know some voters take into account what happened off the field, and others disregard that and say, no, it's purely what he did on the football field.
Absolutely, and that's the hard part about the Hall of Fame. But to go back to just specifically the Stafford situation, yeah, I mean, I think that, and Richard Sherman tweeted this out. How many All Pros does he have? None, right? Like, and sure, is All Pro incredibly difficult to get? They're only what two? Do they do third team now? I can't remember. I get my basketball
No,
and,
I think
and
it's only
NFL
first team and second team.
first team and second.
Thank you,
Okay,
Joseph.
so
I'm getting
so
over it, though.
so only two quarterbacks get it per year, right? Well, when you're playing in an era with Brady, Rodgers, early in your career, Manning, Drew Brees, as you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden coming out of the woodwork, you have the Patrick Mahomes, the Deshaun Watsons, as we talked about. There's some Russell Wilsons. There's some really good quarterbacks in this league, right? So when you say, yeah, well, he won a Super Bowl and he has some good volume stats. Well, yeah, he played for a really bad team that didn't win a lot of games in his career. He has what, three playoff wins now, or four playoff wins, I guess, now, all in this one season. Joe Flacco has that. Is Joe Flacco a Hall of Famer? No, he's not. Is Trent Dilfer a Hall of Famer? No, he's not. I mean, you could go down the list of some guys who have some Super Bowls who weren't that great of quarterbacks. Now, I'm not trying to put Stafford in that conversation. Right? I think Stafford's better than those guys, but he hasn't won an MVP. He hasn't really even been an MVP favorite, or like in the MVP discussion, I should say. Even like Matt Ryan won an MVP, which I think Richard Sherman says, which proved that at least for 1 year he was the best of the best. And Stafford's never been close to that. So how should he get into the Hall of Fame? Because he was on a team that was traded every draft pick they had to bring in the best cornerback in the league. They homegrown the best receiver and D tackle in the league. They brought in a potential Hall of Fame edge rusher in Von Miller, right? And then they did a really good job of, which I think is incredible. They drafted really well in those mid rounds to make up
Mm-hmm.
for the lack of draft picks in the early rounds, and they developed their team really, really well. And then you have a coach who likely, I mean, if he keeps on his trajectory, he might make the Hall of Fame someday. Like he's what, in his mid 30s.
37,
If he doesn't
I think.
retire early, he's in his mid 30s. He is putting out a coaching tree where he's already having to play in the Super Bowl against his own coaches, right? Like,
Yeah, that's
you know,
wild.
when you factor in a lot of that stuff, and granted, did Stafford had to make some plays in that game? Did he make that no look pass? Did he make the final pass? Did he do so without having his two of his top three receivers in for most of that game, and essentially no run game in the whole game. Yeah, I mean he balled out, and the defense played well too. But for me, I don't I don't really care if you play for the Lions or you play for the Patriots. You have to be considered the best. Knockout time brings up a good point. Eli
Eli.
Manning. People are already like that's already a split discussion, and he has two. He beat his defense, but he beat the arguably the greatest
Undefeated
team. Yeah,
Patriots.
arguably the greatest team that we've ever seen. Arguably. And he beat them in the Super Bowl, which again, it's a one game thing, and it was a run to get there. I mean, they were the sixth seed or whatever, and then he did it again a couple years later. But a lot of people don't think he's a Super Bowl worthy quarterback, or sorry, Hall of Fame worthy quarterback. And I mean, if you ask me, I think Eli is more deserving than Stafford. I know he didn't put up the stats, but he won two Super Bowls and beat some of the best teams. He beat Tom Brady twice, who is the greatest of all time. And
Did Eli ever
he
win
puts
an
out
MVP?
I think he was Super Bowl MVP, but never an MVP of the league. No. But again,
That's
this goes
that's the
back to
thing
the
too,
argument
right?
for Stafford. That
That plays
goes against the argument
in
with
Pro
Stafford
Bowls.
is like you're playing again. You're competing for all these accolades, all pros and MVPs. Those are the ones that really matter. Pro Bowl's a joke nowadays, right?
It's a joke, but it
And
does. It's
it factors
down
in,
there on
but
the
it's a
list.
joke.
Yeah.
Like Teddy Bridgewater went to the Pro Bowl that one year
Right.
after throwing like
But
14
with
touchdowns,
Stafford,
right?
I
Like
think has only gone to 4, and I think Kirk Cousins has gone to 4. I'm
right.
just trying to remember those numbers off the top of my head. But if you look at Brady, Rodgers, Breeze, those guys were
They're all
constantly
elected every
going.
year.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But and I know it's hard to be able to get an All Pro. It's hard to get an MVP because only one MVP in the league, only two All Pro quarterbacks. However, the Hall of Fame is the Hall of Fame. It's not a participation fame. It's a Hall
It's
participation
not the
room.
Hall
It's
of
a
Good.
elite. Yeah, it's the elite of the elite, and that's how it should be. And I think I definitely think that in football, there's a lot of really good players that are getting in, but I definitely think that some of them are not as good as maybe I think a Hall of Fame caliber player should be. And maybe I have high expectations, which is probably wrong, but you know,
But
I'm not
but
in for
I agree
participation
with you.
awards.
I think that when it comes to is, is Matt
No,
Ryan
he is
Hall of
not.
Fame Oh, I thought he was saying is Matt Ryan. All right, geez, I need to stop drinking. But I agree with you, Ryan. I think that when it comes to the Hall of Fame, it like it needs to be like you think of their name and it's very convincing. I don't know if Stafford has done that for me yet. Now, I'm not saying he
Could he get
can't
there?
get
He
there,
could get
right?
there. Yeah, yeah.
Like
Like
I'd
he
say
could.
like this Super Bowl win is a good promising start, but let's also keep in mind this team won the Super Bowl, but who got Super Bowl MVP? It wasn't Matt Stafford. It was Cooper
I
Cup.
actually thought it.
And
I thought it should have been Aaron Donald. I
Yes,
mean,
I
they
agree with
don't win
you,
that game
Ryan. But
without Aaron Donald, but I mean, they don't win it
well,
without
we know
Cooper
how
Cup
they
either.
feel
But
about
like,
defensive players in general. That they kind of shun them on those types of votes. I don't remember the last time we've seen a defensive MVP for
the league?
the the league, but let alone the Super Bowl as well.
with
Um,
The Bucks Super Bowl, I think it was maybe.
I'd have to look it up.
Warren,
For the Super Bowl, it's been more recent than the league. For the league, there's maybe a handful.
I mean,
Yeah.
go back to uh,
Oh no, it was the
this isn't a
Seahawks. It was the Seahawks. It was that linebacker for the Seahawks when they won. He won MVP. That not Bobby Wagner, not KJ Wright, but God, I forget his name. But he ended up winning the MVP that year. I can't remember his name.
when we think back to the Patriots when they finally came back against the Falcons in that 28-3 game.
Hmm.
This isn't a defensive player, but I thought James White should have been the MVP of that game, right? I thought he did a lot more than Tom Brady just, throwing it to him in the flat, but Tom Brady was still the MVP winner there. So But no, I agree. Stafford, he has a chance, right? He's on a good team now. Just won a Super Bowl. I want to see some All Pros. I want to see some MVPs in a season, and then maybe he could cement himself. But at this current point, I just can't. I can't get on board with that as well as whoever wins next. Like if we look at the state of the NFL right now, I think I'd only feel comfortable like maybe saying, I mean, obviously there's Rodgers and whatnot, but like younger players, I think I'd probably only feel safe saying Patrick Mahomes as Hall of Fame. And if he just craps the bed, then who knows? But
And
he's
there's
been just
players with
elite.
potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's players with potential. I mean, you have Mahomes, you have even like Josh Allen. I mean, if he keeps on this trajectory, he could get
Lamar.
there. But like,
Lamar's already got
Lamar,
an
if
MVP.
he can, yep, if he can keep like if he can get his team to a Super Bowl and even win one, I mean, that would be huge for him. I did look it up, by the way. Von Miller actually was the last Super Bowl MVP. That was a defensive player. And then in the chat, it
Dexter
was
Jackson.
Malcolm Smith. Yeah, that was like
Who
03, I think, or 04. But
who was the other one, Dave?
You have for defensive Super Bowl MVPs. These are just Super Bowl. Dexter Jackson, Super Bowl 37.
Okay.
Ray Lewis, Super Bowl 35. Larry Brown, Super Bowl 30. Cowboys. Richard Dent, Super Bowl 20. The great Bears defense. Randy White, defensive tackle, and Harvey Martin, co-defensive MVPs. Super Bowl 12. Jackson
Stupid. Just give him
Scott,
one.
safety, Miami Dolphins, Super Bowl 7.
yeah, then I think
They
it was
beat the
Malcolm
Redskins on
Smith
that
and
one.
Von Miller.
Von Miller's not on here. Chuck Howley, linebacker, Dallas, Super Bowl 5. That's it.
Yeah,
Who won it
it
that year
looked. I
then
mean, I don't know. I
with
just looked it up.
Denver?
That's from the
Yeah,
NFL's own site, NFL.com.
yeah, I
Well,
literally thought I just looked it up. Yeah, ESPN, or I guess this is ESPN site. Most valuable players. Yeah, I mean, not that it really matters, but yeah, because I know for sure Malcolm Smith won it in when the Seattle Seahawks won over. I think it was the Broncos.
Right.
And then it says Von Miller won it with 6 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and a pass defense in Super Bowl 50. But I
Okay.
have no idea. I have no idea. Either way, again, it's incredibly hard to get to the Hall of Fame. I don't think a Super Bowl win without MVPs, even Super Bowl MVPs and All Pros gets you there. So
Who was the last defensive player to win MVP for the year award?
it was a
Darren
Viking
Waller,
player, wasn't it?
Nope. One of them had. Alan Page has, but it wasn't Alan
Brown
Page.
Page.
That was before.
Who was it?
Ray Lewis? No, he didn't
Nope.
win.
LT, Lawrence Taylor.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's right.
okay.
Giants.
1986.
Uh, Knockout Time asked who we think we should take, or do I think we should take Booth Jr. with the first pick? I'm not going to talk draft stuff yet. I'm gonna reel you in to come back later in March because after free agency opens, this show is going to be very, very draft heavy with a lot of draft experts hopping on. Um, so we're going to hold off
And
on the draft talk for now, but I am intrigued.
I've been able to
I am
I've been able
intrigued.
to dive in a little bit. So hopefully I'll be able to provide some insights a little bit more than I have been up to this point. I got started late on my draft evaluations of players and stuff, but I've been diving in. I've made my way through quite a bit of the edge class, corner class. I'm like halfway through what I want to look at. Um, I've done some work on safeties. I've done some work on basically every major need that we have, including receiver. So I need to dive in a little bit deeper in almost every other area outside of edge. But I'm feeling pretty good about being able to talk about some people once we get to that on the show.
Perfect. I need to start catching up as well. But we're closing in on the end of the show here. Um, we've kind of talked about a few different things. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about before we call it? Anything on your
Um,
minds? Anything happening? Anything you want to get off your chest?
Obviously the O'Connell news became official, which is amazing, and then it seems like we're bringing in some really good talent. Again, I don't know. I don't know anything about coaches. I guess. I mean, I don't know who's a great coach and who's not, but it seems like O'Connell's bringing in some of his
Half the
buddies from the
Rams
Rams.
staff.
Yeah, right. We have I think like a DB coach coming over. Hopefully, we have the running backs coach coming into OC
Do you want me
potentially.
to go
We
through
have,
the coaches that have been listed?
feel
Dave,
free. Yeah,
if
yeah.
you have them, do it.
Oh, I have them.
Do you have a screen grab too?
I have images. Um, all right. We'll start from the bottom of my list. And the newest one. This is offensive
All of them,
assistant.
Andrew. All of them.
Trying to remember his name. His last name's O'Hare. Chris O'Hare is this guy.
Okay.
And
Looks
his
like a great
title
coach.
for this title was offensive assistant. That tells me he's coffee boy. And I will probably refer to him as coffee boy. But we'll find out. Then you have offensive coordinator candidate number 2 on the list, Thomas Brown. He was the Rams running back coach and running back coordinator, and it was put out today or yesterday. O'Connell wants to bring him in as a possible OC. I'm going out of order here. We have DB coach and defensive pass game coordinator, Jonathan Cooley. And as all you can see, all these guys are wearing blue from the Rams. Our defensive coordinator is going to be Ed Donatel from the
Shout out to Chad Graff for dropping that scoop here on the show,
Yep.
3 weeks ago.
And he is Vic Fangio protege. That's where we're looking to move to the 3-4, but you can disregard. We play a lot of that. We had played a lot of the techniques already. We have players that can play that. That's not a big deal. You're going to see matched fronts, and you're going to see a different type of back end defense. D-line coach is Chris Rumpf. He's from Chicago. He's replacing Andre Peterson. Of course,
Which by the way,
head coach Kevin O'Connell.
that's a big loss for the Vikings.
I thought
Andre
so too.
Patterson leaving is a very big loss for the Vikings. But one thing I want to say about coaches coming in and coaches coming out is it's a new regime. Everything's new, and so is as sad as it is to see some of these guys go. I think that we have to trust this new staff, this new regime, that they're bringing in the right guys that they feel are the best fit. So sad to see Andre Patterson go, but I do think that we should be okay, hopefully.
Running backs coach and possible run game coordinator Chris Modkins. He's from the Broncos. You have O-line coach and running game coordinator also Chris Cooper. Kuper.
And apparently he is a highly touted. Like I don't know much, right? Like again, I only know who they're connected to and how that maybe affects how they do it. But he's a Mike Munchak protege, and Mike Munchak is highly regarded as maybe the best, if not top 2, top 3 offensive line coach in the country. So that's definitely a huge win, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as Ian
And Kirk
said,
Cousins is in the chat tonight.
As Ian said, Keenan McCardell is the only Vikings coach that has been retained that we've heard of. And
Well,
also,
hey, Adam Zimmer might.
No. We literally just kicked him to the curb. Like it
Um,
wasn't even like a thing like where he went to go get another job. He literally just got released.
and possible OC candidate Wes Phillips, and there is word today that both Wes Phillips and Thomas Brown may come over. Which one officially gets the OC job, I don't know. But
I think they're
literally,
saying
Wow.
Wes Phillips will do the tight ends, is I think what I
and
saw.
he's also the tight ends coach, yes. But
Yeah.
we also have a tight ends coach um,
Or
on the
quarterbacks.
list,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes.
um, Brian Angelicio, good Italian boy. He's bounced around the league. He's formerly with the Panthers. He was with the Packers and I want to say Broncos, maybe. There was another team he was with too.
Hey, Dave, do you have like an applause sound? Like, can you pull up like an applause sound? I don't know how easy that is for you.
There's a small applause.
If you're No, that's perfect. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, like Dave made all those pictures that you saw come across the screen. And so you could play it for yourself again if you want, but I just want to give kudos where it's due, right? Like that's impressive stuff. So,
Well,
I
my
know.
favorite one for today was this one because I spent some time finding and putting a uniform on him. Um, but
Well, for next week, maybe you could do Kyler and Baker
possibly,
Mayfield as well.
possibly.
Um,
We don't want me getting too excited, guys. I don't need that
well,
image
Yeah,
legitimately in my head.
yeah. We might have to change the
I
rating onto YouTube.
Hey, but
Explicit.
you know what? It was nice to see him take that picture with Justin Jefferson and Chris Boyd.
um,
That's funny. But
that is
that's who have been mentioned in the Vikings Twitter sphere, blogosphere, everywhere else as possible
yeah.
head coaches that everybody wants to bring in and look at. So you can guarantee a bunch of those guys are going to be the guys. We'll find out. First, we've got to have tomorrow's press conference, and then we'll start hearing. This guy signed his contract. This guy signed his contract. This guy signed, and we'll tick them off as we go, and then we'll get their pictures in purple. Like tomorrow, we'll get their pictures of Kevin O'Connell in his official Viking attire, and we'll go
Yeah,
from
it's
there.
exciting. It is very exciting. It's the new regime is finally set with a head coach and GM who appear to be on the same page, and as we know, that is very important.
So
So
important.
I don't have anything left for this week. We kind of flew by the seat of our pants, mainly because a lot of our guests had to shuffle around the schedule. But what I can say uh, for tonight, I just saw a comment from somebody. I'll let you know after the show, Ryan, where I got it. Uh, just throwing me off my game here. What I can say is next week we're diving into a bunch of speculation, right? We know who the head coach is, know who the GM is. We'll hear from Kevin O'Connell tomorrow, kind of get a feel for what he's thinking about this team. Rumors are starting to swirl up. Combine's right around the corner. So next week, he is shifted from this week to next week, but Will Raggets from Sports Illustrated will be on next week, followed by the week after that, Ben Gessling of the Star Tribune will be
Woohoo.
on. Another person who's very plugged in to the Minnesota Vikings here in the Twin Cities. We have an opening March 9th. Not quite sure yet who
You
it's
may
going to
fit
be. Might be
Matt
Matthew.
Collar.
Yeah, it might be Matthew Collar.
Mhm.
It might be an NFL agent talking all
Ooh.
about the behind the scenes of how free agency works, NFL draft, how teams approach agents and players about restructuring contracts. So stay tuned for that. And then it's still a month out, but Darren Doogie Wolfson might be here on the 16th to talk all things free agency. So we're not done. And like I said earlier, right after the 16th, draft coverage on this show will ramp up immensely to get you guys caught up to speed on everything draft prospects that are coming up. So if you haven't yet, please head over to our YouTube channel, click like, click subscribe, share with your friends, rate us, tell us how you think we're doing. We try to respond to all comments on YouTube if you have a concern or just a accolade or whatever. So, Steve, I'll try and get Ian Rappaport. Don't know if that one will quite work, but we'll see what we can do.
Now,
But
a suggestion for fans to start looking at. All right, we don't have a lot of money to spend. Obviously, as of right now, we're over the cap. We have the draft coming up, but we know there's not enough draft choices to select and fill the team, that we're going to have to bring in some free agents. The free agent class is going to be fat, and a lot of people that usually get paid good money are going to be had for a little bit cheaper because there are so many of them, because there's so many teams that are at or near the cap. So you might want to look to see who's coming up as a free agent.
oh, we will get that covered, Dave. I got some plans for the next couple of weeks, so we'll talk through some scenarios. So just get ready. It will for sure be fun. So everybody in the chat, I appreciate you hopping in tonight. We'll get some good guests next week and moving forward. Ryan, thank you for hopping on again. Dave, thanks for coming out and producing. And I don't know if you have a spiel for the weekend or if Flip and
there's
Eric are
no
going to be
more
on
live
tomorrow.
shows
So
the rest of this week until Saturday, when myself and Darren and two of bloggers come back on live. However, you can probably expect a daily sit rep sometime after tomorrow's introductory press conference. I'm sure somebody in the group will want to come up and give their opinion and thoughts on the whole idea. And
absolutely.
So be on the lookout for those.
Sweet. Ryan, send us off. I'm gonna throw it on you.
Skull Vikings. Let's go, guys.
Skull, everyone. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skull, everybody.